Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads. Back to the Future wasn't just a time travel adventure. It was a production nightmare that nearly collapsed multiple times, survived studio interference, and almost starred someone completely different as its iconic lead. What you see on screen masks one of Hollywood's most chaotic behind-the-scenes stories, a tale of last-minute recasting, exhausted actors, and creative decisions that could have destroyed one of cinema's most beloved franchises. From the devastating firing that saved the film to the dangerous stunts that nearly killed its stars, here are 20 weird facts about Back to the Future that will change how you see this 1985 masterpiece. And stick around for our bonus fact that reveals the most shocking secret of all. Let's jump in the DeLorean and discover the truth behind the flux capacitor. 1. Eric Stoltz was fired after 5 weeks of filming, breaking his heart. The most infamous production disaster in Back to the Future history wasn't a stunt gone wrong or a budget explosion. It was human devastation wrapped in Hollywood necessity. 5 weeks into filming, the filmmakers realized Stoltz wasn't the right fit for the role, with producer Bob Gale explaining, "The humor just hadn't been coming through with Eric." Director Robert Zemeckis was the one to deliver the news to Stoltz, with the filmmaker recalling that it was the hardest meeting I've ever had in my life, and it was all my fault. I broke his heart. What audiences didn't know was that Stoltz had thrown himself completely into the role. He'd filmed major scenes, including the clock tower sequence and Einstein's first-time travel test. The decision to replace him wasn't just about performance. It was about saving a $14 million investment that was spiraling toward disaster. Reshooting all of the scenes Stoltz had already filmed added a reported $4 million to the movie's budget. Not just expensive, but emotionally brutal for everyone involved. 2. Michael J. Fox survived on 5 hours of sleep, shooting 2 productions simultaneously. When Michael J. Fox finally got the role, it wasn't a simple transition. It was a scheduling nightmare that pushed human endurance to its limits. Fox's filming schedule was intense. He would shoot Family Ties during the day and then go right to the Back to the Future set from 6:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m., averaging 5 hours of sleep a night. This wasn't just dedication, it was survival mode filmmaking. What makes this even more remarkable is that Fox maintained his energy and comedic timing despite chronic exhaustion. Fox reportedly averaged only an hour or 2 of sleep each night during production, which was completed on April 20th. The movie's day shots were filmed on weekends, meaning Fox essentially had no days off. He described it as, "This weird ride and I got on," but the physical toll was devastating. Not sacrifice, but systematic sleep deprivation that could have killed the performance that saved the film. 3. Eric Stoltz's method acting drove everyone to breaking point. Stoltz didn't just play Marty McFly, he became him, and it was unbearable for everyone on set. Stoltz adhered to the method of acting instruction to stay in character between takes. His refusal to answer to his real name was a known source of frustration among the movie's crew and maybe even the cast. When he was fired, Christopher Lloyd asked who Eric was, and when told it was Marty, Lloyd responded with genuine confusion. "Oh, I really thought his name was Marty." But the method acting went beyond just staying in character. In one scene in the Hill Valley High School cafeteria called for Marty to get involved in a shoving match with Biff, Stoltz was a little too method with his approach. Despite repeated requests from Wilson to take it easy, Stoltz didn't, forcing the heels of his hands into the supporting actor's collarbone with increasing strength. What was supposed to be staged screen combat became an actual physical confrontation. Not professional intensity, but a dangerous obsession that created a hostile work environment. 4. The script was rejected 40 times before getting made. Back to the Future's journey to the screen was a masterclass in Hollywood rejection. For years, multiple studios passed on the script, more than 40 rejections in total. Among them, Disney, with Gale claiming they said, "Are you guys out of your minds? You can't make a movie like this here. This is Disney, and you're giving us a movie about incest." The mother-son attraction subplot that drives the film's emotional core was seen as too controversial for family entertainment. Other studios dismissed it for different reasons. Most felt the script wasn't raunchy enough for the teen comedy market dominated by films like Porky's. It took the success of Robert Zemeckis' Romancing the Stone, combined with Steven Spielberg's support, to finally get the green light at Universal. What audiences saw as a perfect family film was actually too edgy for Disney and too tame for everyone else. Not an easy success, but creative persistence against overwhelming industry resistance. The movie was eventually banned in China for disrespectful portrayal of history. Go ahead and like and subscribe, because we're about to time travel into some seriously weird international politics. In 2011, China's censorship board passed a motion that banned any and all entertainment that dealt with the concept of time travel. Chinese government officials opted to ban Back to the Future because of its use of time travel and the disrespectful portrayal of history shown in the movie. The Chinese government felt that time travel stories could encourage viewers to think differently about historical events and question official narratives. What makes this particularly ironic is that a comedy about a teenager accidentally disrupting his parents' romance was seen as a threat to political stability. The ban was eventually lifted, but for years, Chinese audiences couldn't legally watch one of America's most beloved family films. Perhaps more surprisingly, given the portrayal of Libyan terrorists in the movie, Back to the Future was never banned in Libya. Not cultural sensitivity, but authoritarian paranoia about fictional time machines. Jennifer Parker was recast because she was 1 inch too tall. Hollywood's obsession with height created one of the film's most bizarre casting decisions. The Office's Melora Hardin initially snagged the role of Marty's girlfriend Jennifer, but was recast before she even began filming after Fox replaced Stoltz. The issue, at 5'5", she was an inch taller than Fox. This wasn't about acting ability or screen chemistry, it was pure mathematical incompatibility. Claudia Wells got the role at 5'3", creating the proper height dynamic the filmmakers wanted. But Wells faced her own tragedy when she couldn't return for the sequels because her mother was dying from breast cancer. Elizabeth Shue stepped in for parts 2 and 3, meaning Jennifer Parker was played by 3 different actresses across the trilogy. What looked like consistent casting was actually a series of heartbreaking interruptions disguised as seamless storytelling. The original time machine was going to be a refrigerator. Before the DeLorean became iconic, Doc Brown's time machine had a much more dangerous design. In an early draft, the time machine was set to be a refrigerator, but Zemeckis was worried children would accidentally lock themselves in refrigerators, so it was changed to a car. This wasn't just about aesthetics, it was about preventing real-world deaths inspired by the movie. The refrigerator concept would have completely changed the film's visual identity and plot mechanics. Instead of the DeLorean's sleek doors and dashboard controls, audiences would have seen Doc Brown stuffing Marty into a kitchen appliance. The change from refrigerator to car also enabled the iconic 88 nights each requirement and the dramatic chase sequences that define the film's climax. Not just creative evolution, but responsible filmmaking that prioritized child safety over original vision. Johnny Depp's audition was so forgettable that Bob Gale doesn't remember it. Before becoming one of Hollywood's biggest stars, Johnny Depp tried out for Marty McFly and completely failed to make an impression. As an unknown at the time, Depp didn't end up making much of an impression with his audition. In fact, Bob Gale doesn't even remember it taking place, but it definitely did. I looked through the notes and I said, geez, I don't even remember that we read Johnny Depp, Gale later recalled. So whatever he did, it wasn't all that memorable, I guess. This creates one of cinema's great what-if scenarios. Depp's eventual success in 21 Jump Street and Pirates of the Caribbean proves he had the charisma and comedic timing for Marty McFly. But his audition was so unmemorable that it didn't even register with the filmmakers. Sometimes future superstars just have bad days, and sometimes those bad days reshape movie history. Not missed opportunity, but proof that even great actors can completely whiff when the timing isn't right. Crispin Glover sued the studio and won $760,000. Crispin Glover's absence from the sequels created one of Hollywood's most expensive legal battles. Crispin Glover, who played Marty's father, George McFly, didn't return for the sequels due to contract disputes. He later filed a lawsuit after filmmakers used footage from the first film and put a mold of his face on another actor in order to fool audiences into thinking I was in the movie, he said. Ultimately, a settlement was reached, with reports that he received $760,000. The filmmakers literally created a fake Crispin Glover using prosthetics and unused footage, then hoped no one would notice. Glover not only noticed, but also proved in court that this violated his likeness rights. His lawsuit established important precedents about actors' control over their image in sequels. What looked like seamless continuity was actually elaborate identity theft that cost Universal nearly $750,000. Not a creative solution, but an expensive legal lesson about respecting actors' rights. Lea Thompson spent 3.5 hours in makeup to become old Lorraine. The stunning age transformation that made young Lea Thompson into elderly Lorraine McFly came at a brutal daily cost. To achieve Lorraine's 1985 look, Thompson's prosthetic makeup took 3.5 hours to apply. This wasn't just sitting in a chair, it was having layers of latex and foam carefully glued to her face while maintaining perfect stillness. Thompson had to arrive at the studio before dawn to begin the makeup process, then perform in heavy prosthetics that restricted her facial movement and made eating nearly impossible. The makeup was so convincing that her own children didn't recognize her. What appears effortless on screen required Thompson to sacrifice comfort, time, and basic human functions like eating lunch. She essentially became a prisoner of her own transformation, trapped inside a brilliant but suffocating disguise. The movie's success was so unexpected that they moved the release date up. Back to the Future's journey from potential disaster to summer blockbuster happened faster than anyone expected. Originally slated to open in August 1985, test audiences reacted so positively to the movie that the studio moved the release date up. Back to the Future hit theaters 9 weeks after completing production. This wasn't just confidence, it was recognition that they had accidentally created something special. Moving a release date up is extremely rare in Hollywood, where studios typically delay films that aren't testing well. The decision to rush Back to the Future into theaters meant compressing post-production, marketing, and distribution into an impossibly tight timeline. The film went from troubled production with massive recasting to summer's biggest hit in record time. Not planned success, but a scramble to capitalize on unexpected magic that could have easily been squandered through poor timing. Ford wanted to pay for product placement, but the filmmakers refused. Corporate sponsorship could have changed everything about Back to the Future's most iconic element. Originally, the studio was hoping Doc's car would be a Ford Mustang, with the company paying for the placement, but Gale refused, telling Adweek, "I said no, Doc Brown doesn't drive a King Mustang, it had to be a DeLorean." Ford's money would have solved budget problems, but destroyed the film's visual identity. The DeLorean's unique gull-wing doors and futuristic appearance were essential to selling the time machine concept. A Mustang, no matter how iconic, would have looked like a regular car with weird equipment attached. Gale's creative integrity saved one of cinema's most recognizable vehicles from becoming a generic product placement. Sometimes the right creative choice costs money but creates something priceless. Not compromise, but artistic vision that refused to be bought. The film almost killed its own sequel before it was made. Back to the Future's ending created an immediate problem that nearly destroyed any chance of sequels. The film concludes with Doc Brown returning from the future to take Marty and Jennifer on another adventure, setting up what should have been an easy continuation. But this ending forced specific story constraints that made writing sequels incredibly difficult. The filmmakers had to deal with Jennifer's presence, explain why the future needed saving, and maintain the original's comedic tone while raising the stakes. The casual, "we don't need roads" line became a story prison that locked them into flying cars and future sequences they weren't originally planning. What looked like a perfect sequel setup was actually an accidental creative trap that took years to solve. Not forward thinking, but an improvised conclusion that accidentally complicated everything that came after. Doc Brown's hunched posture was to hide Christopher Lloyd's height. Doc Brown's distinctive hunched-over stance wasn't just a character quirk, it was a practical necessity. One of the reasons for Doc's hunched-over stance? To help with the 7-inch height difference between the two leads. Christopher Lloyd towered over Michael J. Fox, creating a visual imbalance that would have made their partnership look awkward on screen. Lloyd's physical performance became a masterclass in using body language to serve story needs. The hunch made Doc appear more manic and eccentric while solving a technical problem. Lloyd revealed his two inspirations for Doc: Albert Einstein and Philadelphia Orchestra conductor Leopold Stokowski, who had white hair. What audiences interpreted as mad scientist energy was actually carefully calculated physical comedy designed to hide the inconvenient reality. Not character choice, but brilliant problem-solving disguised as performance art. Test footage of Eric Stoltz wasn't released until 30 years later. The most guarded secret in Back to the Future history finally saw daylight 3 decades after the film's release. In 2015, footage of Stoltz as Marty was released for the first time in a documentary included on the 30th anniversary Blu-ray set. "We wanted to soft-pedal that," Gale said of the decision to release a small look at his performance. "We didn't want to make Eric feel bad." For 30 years, the alternate version of Back to the Future remained locked away, existing only in the memories of the cast and crew who witnessed the original filming. The footage revealed a completely different interpretation of Marty McFly, more serious, more intense, less comedic. Releasing it required delicate diplomacy to avoid humiliating Stoltz while satisfying fan curiosity. What finally emerged was proof that sometimes the wrong choice can be fascinating even when it's absolutely wrong. Not vindication, but a fascinating glimpse into cinema's most famous creative disaster. Bonus fact: here's the most shocking secret about Back to the Future. The film accidentally inspired real scientific research into time travel. After the movie's release, theoretical physicists began seriously studying the mechanics of time travel, partly inspired by the film's portrayal of temporal paradoxes and causality loops. The movie's focus on the consequences of changing the past influenced academic papers on temporal mechanics and quantum physics. More incredibly, several real-world inventors have attempted to build actual time machines based on the DeLorean design. While none have succeeded in achieving time travel, the film's scientific consultant convinced multiple scientists that certain aspects of the time travel concept weren't completely impossible. What was meant to be pure entertainment became inadvertent scientific inspiration, proving that sometimes fiction pushes reality in unexpected directions. Back to the Future's legacy extends far beyond its box office success or cultural quotability. It survived production disasters that would have killed most films, overcame studio interference that could have destroyed its identity, and transformed potential failure into triumph through a combination of luck, persistence, and creative integrity. The movie that almost didn't get made became a template for how to blend comedy, science fiction, and heart into something that resonates across generations. If you enjoyed these shocking revelations about Hill Valley's most famous time travelers, hit that like button and subscribe for more behind-the-scenes secrets. Because in the world of movie production, where we're going, We definitely need more roads, and they're all paved with incredible stories waiting to be discovered.